My name is Maya, and for the most part, I believed I had a beautiful life. I was married to Rishi, my college sweetheart, a calm, gentle soul who always said the right things and made me feel safe. We'd been together for 3 years, and though life wasn't always perfect, I never doubted the strength of our bond. When Rishi told me his father would be staying with us for a few months due to ongoing renovations at his ancestral home, I didn't think much of it. I had met Vikram, my father-in-law, a handful of times before. He was well-groomed, articulate, and had that older man charm that made him the center of attention at family gatherings. I respected him, genuinely. At first, his presence didn't disrupt much. He kept to himself, mostly reading the newspaper, tending to a few plants on the balcony, or watching old cricket matches. I continued with my part-time graphic design work from home, slipping him the occasional tea or lunch plate while Rishi was away at his tech job. But gradually, the dynamic began to shift. It started with small things. Vikram would appear in the kitchen just as I was reaching for a plate, his hand brushing mine unnecessarily. Or he'd compliment my clothing, not with the generic warmth of a father-in-law, but with a lingering tone that unsettled me. "You look radiant today, Maya," he said once, eyes scanning my figure in a way that made my skin crawl. I chuckled awkwardly and thanked him, brushing it off. Maybe I was overthinking. Maybe this was just how he was, old-fashioned, as Rishi once put it. Still, unease began to settle into my daily routine like a shadow I couldn't shake. Vikram started spending more time in the living room while I worked. I'd feel his gaze on the back of my neck as I designed logos or edited client content. When I turned around, he'd smile, a little too slow to look away. I tried mentioning it to Rishi once, choosing my words carefully. "Your dad's a bit intense," I said one night as we lay in bed. He looked up from his phone, puzzled. "Intense how?" "Just the way he talks to me. Looks at me sometimes." "It's nothing big. Maybe I'm imagining it." "Maya," he interrupted, voice firm. "He's my dad. He's always been a little over-friendly, but he means well. Don't stress over it." I nodded, biting my tongue. But the discomfort didn't vanish. In fact, it only got worse. One evening, as I reached up to grab a bowl from the kitchen cabinet, Vikram came up behind me and placed his hand on the small of my back, guiding me as if I were about to fall. I froze. "You should ask Rishi to install lower shelves," he murmured, much too close. "Wouldn't want you to hurt yourself." I stepped away quickly, muttering thanks. I could still feel the pressure of his touch hours later. A few days later, I was folding laundry in the bedroom when I realized I'd left the balcony door open. I walked over to close it, and out of the corner of my eye, I saw him, Vikram, standing silently in the hallway, staring straight into the room. At me. The laundry basket slipped from my arms. "Vikramji," I said, trying to sound composed. He didn't flinch, just smiled slowly, then walked away without a word. That night, I locked our bedroom door for the first time. I didn't tell Rishi. I wasn't ready. I wasn't sure what I'd even say. That his father had developed a strange obsession with me, that I felt watched, touched, cornered in my own home. It sounded crazy. And yet, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was very wrong. Vikram wasn't just being friendly. His behavior was calculated, deliberate, like he was waiting for something, pushing boundaries to see how far he could go. The next morning, I found a note on the kitchen counter in delicate, almost feminine handwriting. "You should wear blue more often. It suits your spirit." No name, no explanation. But I had worn blue the previous day. I stood in the kitchen, the kettle hissing behind me, my hands trembling as I held the note. That was when I knew. This wasn't in my head. It wasn't innocent. And it wasn't going to stop. I kept the note. I folded it twice, tucked it behind a rarely used cookbook, and tried to pretend it didn't exist. But it haunted me. Every time I crossed paths with Vikram, I wondered if he had seen the color I wore that day, if he'd comment again or worse, act again. The atmosphere at home grew heavier. Rishi had started working late, often returning with tired eyes and barely a word. Our evenings, once filled with quiet laughter and shared meals, now consisted of muffled conversations and longer silences. I tried bringing it up again. He watches me, Rishi. He's made comments. Rishi rubbed his forehead, visibly frustrated. Maya, we've talked about this. He's old, he doesn't have boundaries, but he's not dangerous. You don't see what I see, I said, my voice cracking despite my resolve. He looked at me then, his expression distant. Maybe you're just spending too much time at home. You need to get out more. That stung. Not only did he not believe me, he made me feel like the problem. The next few days passed in slow motion. I avoided being alone with Vikram, timing my movements around the apartment so that we rarely occupied the same room. Yet somehow, he always found a way to enter my space. He began asking invasive questions masked as conversation. Were you always this graceful, Maya? He'd ask while standing too close. I began texting my best friend, Leela, obsessively. She lived 2 cities away, but had always been my voice of reason. That's not normal, she said after I told her everything. You need to record him, or something. Get proof. At first, the idea felt absurd. But the longer I lived with that lingering fear, the more logical it became. I didn't trust my words anymore, especially not with Rishi. One night, I installed a basic security app on my phone and positioned it discreetly on the living room shelf before heading to the kitchen. I made tea as usual, trying to stay calm. Vikram entered 5 minutes later. You always smell like cinnamon, he said softly, sniffing the air near my shoulder. I tensed. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. I just had to make it back to the living room and retrieve the phone without arousing suspicion. Later, locked in the bedroom, I watched the footage. It wasn't much, just him standing too close, leaning in, but it was something. Something undeniable. Still, it felt thin. I needed more. A part of me still held out hope that I was wrong, that maybe this wasn't as dark as it seemed. The final crack came 3 days later. I found Vikram's phone unattended on the coffee table, unlocked. I don't know what possessed me, but I picked it up. Maybe curiosity. Maybe desperation.
What I found shattered me.
There were screenshots. Photos of me. Not just candid moments from family dinners, but ones clearly taken in secret. Me drying my hair, cooking in shorts, bending down to pick something up. Each one captioned, "So innocent. She doesn't know how beautiful she is. One day, she'll see it." My throat closed. My hands shook as I tapped further. I found a draft email, unsent, addressed to an unknown recipient. She doesn't appreciate Rishi. He's blind to her magic. But I'm not. I see her. I always have. And then, at the bottom of that screen, the most chilling discovery, a folder. Inside it were screenshots of fake conversations, crafted using a message simulator. Conversations between me and an anonymous user, flirtatious, suggestive, incriminating.
He was framing me.
The realization hit like cold water. Vikram hadn't just been inappropriate, he had been building a narrative, a trap. One that could pit me against Rishi, make me look unstable or unfaithful. He was planting seeds of doubt while playing the innocent patriarch. I backed away from the phone like it burned. Tears welled up in my eyes, not just from fear but from fury. I had trusted this house, this family. And now I was a character in some twisted fantasy I never consented to. When Rishi came home that night, I couldn't bring myself to speak. I watched him move through the space, completely unaware that the air around us was thick with betrayal. I wondered what he truly believed, if he still thought I was imagining things, or if Vikram had already started poisoning his mind. I didn't sleep that night. I sat at the edge of our bed, my fingers trembling around the phone I could no longer ignore. The images, the forged messages, the drafts, each one screaming the same truth. I wasn't safe here. But more than fear, I felt rage. Cold, focused rage. Vikram had manipulated my silence, twisted my image, and nearly succeeded in making me question my own sanity. I wouldn't let him win. By morning, I had copied everything, screenshots, video clips, emails, onto a USB drive. I didn't know what I was going to do with it yet, but I clutched it like a weapon. Rishi noticed my silence over breakfast. For once, Vikram stayed in his room, perhaps sensing the shift in the air. I barely looked up from my plate when Rishi asked, "You okay?" I met his gaze, steady now. "We need to talk. Tonight. All of us." He nodded, puzzled, and returned to sipping his coffee. That evening, I called Leela. She was furious on my behalf, but proud. "You're stronger than most, Maya," she said. "Don't let them gaslight you again." As night fell, I waited until Vikram emerged from his room, phone in hand, eyes scanning the living room like he owned it. "Can we sit down for a minute?" I asked calmly. He glanced at Rishi, then shrugged. "Of course." I turned on the TV, connected the USB, and hit play. The first clip rolled, him leaning far too close in the kitchen, commenting on my scent, his hand brushing against mine. Then, a scrolling gallery of the secret photos I'd found on his phone. Lastly, the draft email with those haunting words. Rishi sat frozen. Vikram didn't move. Silence swelled between us, unbearable, until finally Vikram laughed, a low, dismissive chuckle. "This is ridiculous," he said. "You're twisting things, Maya. That video? Harmless interactions. And that phone? You must have hacked it. This is slander." I turned to Rishi, my voice calm but resolute. "Do you think I faked this? Do you still think I'm imagining it?" Rishi's jaw clenched. His eyes darted between us. Then slowly, almost imperceptibly, he shook his head. "I don't know what to believe," he said hoarsely, "but I know what I saw." Vikram stood abruptly. "She's trying to ruin this family." "No," I interrupted, my tone firmer than ever before. "You did that. You violated my trust, my privacy, and you tried to make me look insane to my own husband." His expression twisted. "You won't get away with this." "I don't have to get away with anything," I said, standing. "Because I'm not the one who should be ashamed." I packed my bag that night. Rishi didn't stop me. He stood in the doorway as I zipped up the suitcase, his expression blank, his world clearly unraveling. "Are you leaving me?" he asked quietly. "No," I replied, pausing. "You already lost me when you chose doubt over trust." I moved in with Leela temporarily. The first night I slept there, I cried, not from pain but relief. For the first time in weeks, I wasn't afraid to breathe. A week later, I filed a formal complaint. It wasn't easy. There were questions, sideways glances, disbelief. But I had evidence. I had my voice back. Vikram was questioned. He denied everything, as expected. But when confronted with the manipulated messages and his pattern of behavior, cracks began to show. The investigation is ongoing, but the silence around him is broken, and that matters. As for Rishi, he called once. Just once. "I didn't protect you," he said. "I failed you." I didn't reply. Some wounds don't close with apologies. Now, when I look back, I don't see a broken marriage or a damaged home. I see a woman who refused to be silenced. I see every step I took to protect myself, even when it meant walking away from everything I thought I knew. If there's anything I've learned, it's this. The real betrayal isn't always in the act. It's in the denial. In the silence that follows when you scream for help and no one listens.